It's 12 minutes past 9. A crackdown on irresponsible pet owners in Stoke-on-Trent could mean no-go zones for dogs.
Who let the dogs out?
It would mean tougher rules on cleaning up dog mess and more places where dogs will need to be on a lead. One of the concerns is over safety if dogs aren't controlled by their owners. Sarah Hursthouse is a dog behaviourist in Staffordshire. Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, is this more about owners knowing their dog rather than putting tighter laws in place?
Yes, it is, but unfortunately a lot of owners think their dogs are under control when in fact they're not. It's a regular thing that you see owners out with dogs who, obviously don't come back to them when they're called, don't really appear to be listening to their owners, and can often be quite scary to other owners if they come flying across a field to you and your dog or your children. I think that's the problem, really.
And you often hear dog owners going, "Oh, it's all right, he won't hurt a fly, it's fine."
Absolutely, yeah, that's what people think, because their dog is perhaps nice-natured and great with other dogs and great with people or whatever, but other people don't know that. And also, equally, your dog might be scared of other dogs, and you might be working really hard to improve that, working with trainers or whatever, and then somebody else's dog can spoil that by coming flying over towards them.
Do you think that these no-go zones then will help the situation, sort of the segregation as such?
Not really, no, because I think that happens in areas where dogs are allowed to be off lead, and I think it's important that there certainly are areas where dogs are allowed to be off lead. It's a very important part of a dog's exercise, socialisation. So I wouldn't like to see, a real clampdown on too many places where dogs are not allowed to go off lead. Certainly there are areas such as children's play areas and parks and things like that where I would agree with the restrictions being in place. So I don't think the restrictions will help with that issue of people having basically out of control dogs, really.
So how do dogs change when they're off the lead compared to when they're on the lead? Obviously, when you're walking a dog and a dog's on the lead, you've got a little bit more control over where the dog goes. But do their attitudes change when they're freed from that lead?
Well, actually, when dogs are off lead, generally they are a little bit better off lead in terms of certainly being around other dogs, because when a dog is on its lead, it's very much trapped. If you think of a dog as a fight or flight animal, on a lead their flight option is removed. So they do feel trapped, and that can lead to anxiety, and then that can lead to reactivity such as barking and lunging and things like that on the lead. So I work with many dogs who are quite reactive to other dogs or other people on the lead, but off the lead are much, much better because they have the freedom to move around and to get away if they want to, so feel more relaxed.
Are people too scared around dogs then?
I wouldn't say so. I think, if anything, I would say it's the opposite. I think most people seem to like dogs, and a lot of people will behave quite inappropriately around dogs.
In what way?
Well, some dogs can be anxious, some dogs can be a little bit wary around strangers, which is fine, and yet people will come along and lean over them, stick the hand out in the faces, expecting every single dog to be happy and friendly to see them, and often dogs can be nervous. I've had an incident out walking a dog of mine, and a mum and young child come along, when I say young child, probably about 11 years old, and just decided to lean into my dog's face and do a sort of pretend growl at my dog.
Which is going to be scary, isn't it?
Which is awful. My dog was completely freaked out. So, people can often behave inappropriately, and obviously it's important as well for parents to teach their children how to behave appropriately around other dogs.
Sarah, just fascinated listening to what you're saying this morning, and fascinated too because, as you'll know, because you've been listening, I know that Charlotte's trying to convince her husband that having a dog's a good idea. One thing I did notice, if we replace the notion of dog with the notion of husband, your first answer is really interesting.
Because their dog is perhaps nice-natured and great with other dogs and great with people or whatever, but other people don't know that. And also, equally, your dog might be scared of other dogs.
A really interesting point. So how do you train your husband to allow a dog in the house?
Well, I've got a great plan for that. You see, I have 4 dogs. And when my husband met me, I had 1 dog. He'd never had a dog before, and I had 1 dog. And I've managed to increase that to 4. And you do that by waiting until your husband's favourite football team have a big win.
Yeah,
and then in the 5 minutes following that, that's when you get them to commit to a puppy.
Brilliant. I've written this down. So he supports Macclesfield Town. This is not going to happen anytime soon, is it?
That might be a bit of a problem. Yeah, my husband supports Manchester City, so they do have a little bit more.
You've got more chance on this, haven't you?
Yeah,
So
but I'm sure you could work on it.
I am working on it. Don't you worry. Sarah Hursthouse, thank you very much for talking to us this morning.
You're
Dog
welcome.
behaviourist.
Thank you.
There you go, dog and husband behaviourist. Got to wait for a Mactown win and then you're in with a chance.